So the fact that you have names for things, you know, I always think it's funny. Like, I'm Jewish, and we have a name for people that aren't Jewish, goyim. It's not an insult. It just means non-Jewish. It means nation. Right. Actually, Israel is a goy, which is a nation. But we're 0.2% of the world's population. Like, what the hell? Why are you making up names for? They should make names for you, right? Right. But we have names as astronomers. There were only 5 things they could see that would move in space, and those were the planets from Mercury, Venus. Obviously, they could see Mars and Jupiter and Saturn, but they couldn't see anything else. So they named those things the wanderers, and they wandered against the fixed stars. Now we know the stars do move. And actually the whole galaxy moves, and potentially, we'll get to this maybe later, maybe the universe in some sense could be said to be moving in a vaster landscape called the multiverse. I made a video once, I said, this is the best Christmas gift you could possibly get a kid, because with it, you can see the same craters on the moon that Galileo saw. Light pollution does not obscure the planets. Light pollution does not make impossible. I'm not advocating for light pollution, but I'm just saying, right here in the middle of Austin or in the middle of San Diego, I can see the exact same things that caused Galileo to realize that the sun is the center of the solar system, using scientific reasoning and evidence based on observation.
How good are the telescopes? Like, say if you wanted to look at Jupiter, how much can you see?
You can see a lot. What you can see
the shape?
You can see the shape that it's a planet. Do you know what the word planet means or where it derives from?
No.
So I love etymology, and stop me if I'm nerding out too much. But planet means wanderer in Greek. Galileo in the winter of 1610 in northern Italy, where he was living, he used a telescope not any better than this, but he was able to measure Jupiter and see it, and hopefully we can see it on the screen. And he saw it as a disk. So if you want to see planets, you can differentiate them right now by the fact that they do not scintillate, they do not sparkle, they do not twinkle twinkle like stars do, because they're extended objects that we can actually see through the same and different parts of the atmospheric column. That's what causes scintillation. You know, like a sniper rifle, they correct for it. They use what's called adaptive optics. That's to avoid like the thermal radiation from the Earth. Like you're shooting something, or elk or whatever, at great distance, there's thermal radiation close to the ground, and then the air is much cooler, and so you get these boundary layers of the atmosphere that causes differential refraction, which changes the color and the position of where the deer is, and that's not good, right? But because they're close to us, they don't appear to be points, and only points will twinkle. So if you want to identify a star versus a plane versus a planet, the planet will be the thing that doesn't move and doesn't twinkle. That's called scintillation. They do not scintillate the same way that stars do. So what Galileo did in January of 1610 is he made a series of observations of the planet Jupiter. He knew exactly where it was. He also invented the tripod. He was the first person to... These things that we just take for granted, like, Joe, do you know that they didn't have clocks back then? There was no clock.
They couldn't measure time. Right?
They had sundials, but what are you going to do at night?
When was the first clock?
So Galileo tried to invent the first clock. It was actually part of a precursor to the Nobel Prize. It was something called the Longitude Prize. They offered a prize. I don't know if you've ever done any boating or whatever, but when you're out on the ocean, it's extremely hard to determine what your longitude is. It's easy to find your latitude. You just look for Polaris, the North Star. But it was impossible to tell where you are east to west from the prime meridian unless you had an accurate way of measuring time. And he tried a couple different ways to invent timepieces, but the one that he tried to settle on was this use of the planet Jupiter's moons. Jupiter has 4 moons. I came for that look, Joe. I came for that look. It's just, I can die happy. I got the look. So what Galileo did is he turned the telescope to the moon in 1609, and then in 1610, there they are, Jamie, on the right with those stars.
Look at that illustration of Galileo.
That's his handwritten. I've seen, a friend of mine owns this copy, a first edition of these books. And you're looking at it, and actually...
A first edition? The actual copy that he wrote on?
Not only that, yeah, the first edition, but it has his handwriting on it in pencil.
Whoa.
It's insane.
Oh, my God. That's got to be worth $1 billion.
Oh, it's
Jamie, could you please go back to that? Those illustrations?
I had that. this thing. I think
That's the
Yeah,
handwritten
okay.
stuff?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So I couldn't tell what this was. That's why I didn't want to bring it up.
Man, imagine having a piece of paper that guy wrote on.
Can you imagine it? So this is so this is a depiction of him showing. So Galileo's the guy with the beard looking down, like Andrew Huberman, at the guy with the
Does look
white
like
beard.
Andrew
Yeah,
Huberman. Got that beautiful chiseled beard.
That's right, muscular. Because Galileo was kind of a cad. He had a bunch of mistresses. He had some illegitimate children. And
How
he had-
dare you, Galileo?
He had to support.
How dare
his-
you not be pure?
He had to support his brother, who's kind of a no-goodnik. But anyway, the sketches in the lower right show the planet as you will see it with this telescope. And I'll let you know when it comes out. And those four little dots, there was an image a couple of pages back, Jamie, that showed the planet as a disk, and then there are four stars. And if you go back one, I'll point it out to you. Yeah, see that thing in the lower right, Jamie? It's a Pinterest thing. I don't know if that's yeah, click on that. So here's a couple of, see it says January, well, it's hard to see. It's January 1610. That's Galileo's handwriting. Wow. And Ionis is like Jupiter, okay? So
He had shit handwriting.
Oh, I know, yeah.
I always thought people back then just wrote perfectly with feathers.
Who knew how to read it?
That's
right.
good point. That's a very good point.
If you want to know, you've had on like my friend Sean Carroll. He talked about the Higgs boson when he was on the first time. If you want to feel what it was like to discover the Higgs boson, you need 10 to 20 billion euros, and you need a Large Hadron Collider. Okay, good luck. I don't know if Spotify's gonna, hook you up there. But but the feeling that Galileo had, you can have that tonight. You can feel what it's like to see things for the first time in human history, because it's your own history. You're experiencing it for the first time. There's no other scientific tool, nothing. Even the microscope, it's not the same viscerally. You will be connected to Galileo 400 years ago, feeling he was terrified. When he saw those pictures of those dots, he realized what he was looking at was not just like some stars that happened to be next to Jupiter. He realized he discovered another solar system, a system in which there was a massive gravitating object, Jupiter, and around it were orbiting satellites. They're called the Galilean satellites. He actually named them after his benefactor, those patrons, the Medicis, who were the richest, people in that part of northern Italy. So he was clever, right? He was trying to curry favor.
Sure.
Maybe it would be like if we named the Higgs boson, we named that after, the European, equivalent of the IRS, right?
Right.
He was kind of a kiss up, in some ways, sycophant. But it had to save his life, and he needed money and so forth.
Right.
But when he drew that, he realized, wait a second, the Bible and all teaching heretofore said there is only one center to the solar system, and it's the Earth, not the sun. This is called geocentrism. Everybody believed that. Aristotle, Plato, everybody had believed that for a long time, because it said it was natural that heavy things should fall towards a center, and the center that everything seemed to fall towards was the center of the Earth, or the Earth itself. Therefore, the Earth must be the center of the universe.
This geocentric version of the universe that they've, how is it written in the Bible? Like, how do they describe?
A very religious person. In fact, two of his daughters were nuns, and because of his, in other words, the most powerful force on earth at that time, at least where Galileo was the Vatican. He never left Italy. He never left. Italy didn't exist back then, by the way. They were only city-states, right? Tuscany and Venice and Rome and so forth. But the notion, it was a Catholic, band of jurisdiction, and Catholic Church had sway over that part of Italy and Tuscany where he was. He was very religious, but he thought that he could say things like, if he proved that something scientifically was true, he didn't understand why that couldn't be part of the religious canon. So he was surprised. In other words, he felt that the signature of God is truth. So if he discovered truth, it wouldn't be a problem it wouldn't be threatening. Then it was kind of threatening. Like, if you started having a bunch of people say, oh, the Bible's wrong, we've been misled, and they're the government, not just scientific authority, they're the government, it could lead, I'm not saying it's good, but it could lead them to want to suppress that, right? Because it could lead to insurrections, it could lead to whatever, and rebellions. And that could be perceived as very threatening to the state.